These are my buildings. I build all around the world out of our office in Vancouver and New York. And we build buildings of different sizes and styles and different materials depending on where we are, but wood is the material that I love the most. And I'm going to tell you the story about wood. And part of the reason I love it is that every time people go into my buildings that are wood, I notice they react completely differently. I've never seen anybody walk into one of my buildings and hug a steel or a concrete column, but I've actually seen that happen in a wood building. I've actually seen how people touch the wood, and I think there's a reason for it. Just like snowflakes, no two pieces of wood can ever be the same anywhere on Earth. That's a wonderful thing. I like to think that wood gives Mother Nature fingerprints in our buildings. It's Mother Nature's fingerprints that make our buildings connect us to nature and the built environment. Now, I live in Vancouver near a forest that grows to 33 stories tall. Down the coast here in California, the redwood forest grows to 40 stories tall. But the buildings that we think about in wood are only 4 stories tall in most places on Earth. Even building codes actually limit the ability for us to build much taller than 4 stories in many places, and that's true here in the United States. Now, there are exceptions, but there needs to be some exceptions, and things are going to change, I'm hoping. And the reason I think that way is that today, half of us live in cities, and that number is going to grow to 75%. Cities and density mean that our buildings are going to continue to be big, and I think there's a role for wood to play in cities. And I feel that way because 3 billion people in the world today, over the next 20 years, will need a new home. That's 40% of the world are going to need a new building built for them in the next 20 years. Now, 1 in 3 people living in cities today actually live in a slum. It's 1 billion people in the world live in slums. 100 million people in the world are homeless. The scale of the challenge for architects and for society to deal with in building is to find a solution to house these people. But the challenge is, as we move to cities, cities are built in these 2 materials, steel and concrete. And they're great materials. They're the materials of the last century. But they're also materials with very high energy and very high greenhouse gas emissions in their process.